directed by Rob Reiner. First, a synopsis. A lumbar puncture, also known as a spinal tap, is a medical procedure in which a needle is inserted into the spinal canal, most commonly to collect cerebrospinal fluid for diagnostic testing. The main reason for a lumbar puncture is to help diagnose diseases of the central nervous system, including the brain and spine. Examples of these conditions include meningitis and subarachnoid hemorrhage. It may also be used therapeutically in some conditions. Increased intracranial pressure is a contraindication due to risk of brain matter being compressed and pushed toward the spine. Sometimes lumbar puncture cannot be performed safely. It is regarded as a safe procedure, but post-dural puncture headache is a common side effect. The procedure is typically performed under local anesthesia using a sterile technique. A needle is used to access the subarachnoid space and fluid collected. Fluid may be sent for biochemical, microbiological, and cytological analysis. Lumbar puncture was first introduced in 1891 by the German physician Heinrich Quench.
I'm going to quench your Heinrich, pal. You think you're a real grade A jokester, huh?
That's what I do.
Well, our fan is not going to appreciate that.
Sorry, Oliver.
Right? Yeah.
Oliver did.
Friend of the show, Oliver. He's not going to appreciate that.
Oliver did
lowbrow humor.
Oliver did email us because he wanted to correct me on the room 234, 237 fiasco. But I think before he sent the email, you had already called me out on it. So there we go. He cares. Damn it. Well,
see, friend of the show.
So anyway, moving on. So this is Spinal Tap, the movie. This is a documentary directed by Marty DeBurgi, who's played by Rob Reiner, as he documents the American tour of British metal band Spinal Tap as they promote their new album, Smell the Glove. The band is made up of David St. Hubbins, Nigel Tufnell, Derek Smalls, and various ill-fated drummers, currently Mick Shrimpton, and keyboardist Viv Savage. As the documentary proceeds, we get to meet the band in various interviews, and while they appear to be competent musicians, they are kind of dim, drawl, and not particularly imaginative when it comes to the creative or inspired side of things like lyrics and content and themes. We get to experience their tour as it basically goes down the toilet, contrary to the best efforts of their manager Ian Faith. Their album cover is pulled for a black non-cover, low attendances at concerts and signings, etc. David's girlfriend Janine arrives and brings the darkness of the cliched Yoko Ono figure into things. Pods fail to open, 18-inch Stonehenges, dancing druid midgets, inner band turmoil and strife, bad bookings, delusion and sadness abound. This is Spinal Tap. So RJ, what is your history with the film This is Spinal Tap?
You're gonna get mad at me.
Yeah.
I had always thought that I had seen this movie.
Yep.
And then about a half an hour in, I was like, I don't think I've ever fucking seen this movie. It's one of those things where like I bring it up all the time, but it's like I feel like it's just been like absorbed through other mediums so many times, like different TV and shows like mimic it and like take from it so much. Like it's one of those things where it's like through other things I thought that I had seen it. So yeah, like I thought I'd seen it, but when I watched it, I was like, you know what? I've never seen this fucking movie. So it was the first time this week.
Okay. Well, like, so for me, like my first encounter with Spinal Tap was The Simpsons. There was the episode, The Auto Show, which aired in 1992. And so I was 8 years old in 1992, not 9 yet. And so at the time, I kind of just thought, oh, it's Spinal Tap. They're a real band. Like, I didn't realize it was sort of this elaborate inside joke that like, oh no, it's like, well, this is like a real band. Like they've actually toured, but it's not like real in a legitimate sense. It's just like, oh, it's just like these actors that like are playing these musicians, and it's like a strange blurring of reality, I guess, because I guess as we'll go on, like, I mean, they actually did have a tour like in the last like 7 years. But anyway, I guess like what I'd like to talk about with this is, I guess, just talking about like mockumentary as a form, because like as you just like kind of talked about, like how I mean, you thought you've seen this, and in a lot of ways, I mean, like it's ridiculous how influential this film is. Right. I guess because I mean, I was like reading up about mockumentaries, and I guess like you'd have like April Fool's Day jokes like on news stations back in the 60s that would kind of do like sort of these like mockumentary type of things. It seems like the one like go-to for a lot of like these articles I was reading was like talking about Orson Welles and his War of the Worlds radio prank thing, and talking about how that's like a mockumentary, which is like
is that accurate? Like, I
not,
wouldn't say that.
Me neither.
It's just like a prank.
Right, and it's yeah, but it's like sort of like that fine line of like fiction, like, or presenting something as real.
Sure.
I get it's like, I don't know, it's goofy. People just like to bring Orson Welles into conversations, I think, and they like to be like, I think they like the idea that like they're the first person to tell somebody about that War of the Worlds radio thing. Like they're like, you haven't heard about that, so maybe I'll throw it out there and I'll be really impressive. But it's like, seriously, I remember I knew that as a kid.
Yeah, what a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
come on.
I mean, Woody Allen even did the same thing in that Radioland movie of his. And speaking of Woody Allen, I mean, he was doing the whole found footage thing, the mockumentary thing, because his like first movie, like Take the Money and Run, it's like a kind of like a crime documentary with like footage of it inside of it with a narrator and stuff like that. And then like actually a year before Spinal Tap came out, he did Zelig, which is like completely done as like a mockumentary. But I think like this is Spinal Tap because it's like pretty overtly like a comedy, whereas Zelig's like a fine line. Like it's kind of like laughing about like the conceits of documentary filmmaking. I think this is Spinal Tap is past that. Like it's not making fun of documentary filmmaking. It's like just talking about, like, it's about the characters themselves. And I mean, this is Spinal Tap sets the, I mean, Christopher Guest, who is in This is Spinal Tap. I mean, his like whole like successful career was making like mockumentary films, like Waiting for Guffman and For Your Consideration, stuff like that.
Sure.
The Borats, Your Brunos, and then like, I mean, there's even the whole like found footage and horror, like it's like sort of like played upon that idea, like a Blair Witch Project. And then like I think though television has probably had the most success in making the best out of like the mockumentary format, like something like The Office, Parks and Rec, Arrested Development. I mean, they've all like, that's all they basically drew on was this idea of like narration and like these like candid interviews one-on-one and stuff like that. And I mean, so like, yeah, I think there's definitely a thorough line you could draw to like something like The Office from This is Spinal Tap. And I think it's like a really useful tool because usually a lot of these productions, they're like low, there's like almost no production budget beyond like basic stuff. And so for like an independent filmmaker, I mean, this is like it's a brilliant way of like pulling off an idea. Because it's like, well, you only have actual places to film stuff in. You have maybe access to like improv actors because usually like you should know someone who can do improv. You don't want to actually go through the effort of like really writing a script necessarily. You can just write an outline, which is exactly what they did with This is Spinal Tap. And I was like kind of looking ahead too, and it's like in the Criterion Collection, I think there's like at least one other mockumentary we'll be watching, and that's Man Bites Dog, which is sort of like a black comedy thing with like a documentary film crew following around a serial killer, which is like
fun.
That's like another like weird like subgenre too of these mockumentary serial killer things. There's like several of those. So yeah, I mean, you have your pseudo documentary, you have your docu-fiction, your docudrama, et cetera, as these sort of formats. I mean, it's like it's a popular way of doing something, and like I guess playing against these like sort of tropes that we recognize because we've watched news or whatever, and so we can see those things being presented, and sometimes it's done really well and sometimes it's done really, really poorly. So that all being said, RJ, what did you think of the movie This is Spinal Tap, since this was your first viewing?
So I liked it.
Yeah, I
thought it was pretty good. But this is where the hate mail might come in. That's about it. I thought it was pretty good. Like I don't have a fond memory of these guys or like a love for this, like a cult kind of love for this. Like I don't hold it in like close to me in any way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I have no attachment to it. So like just watching it the first time, like I thought it was pretty good, but I don't know. I don't think it's like super great or anything like that. I can see why like when it came out, why it would have been as good as I think was received, or why now it has like that kind of cult following to it. Um, I don't know, like I liked it. It's kind of hard to talk about. Like I think comedies in general like are sometimes hard to like talk about because you get into this weird frame where you're like basically just saying jokes from the movie back and forth. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
sure.
So like I want to like I'd like to try to avoid me just doing that because I could just name off like a bunch of the jokes I thought were funny, but like as a mockumentary as a whole or like as a movie as a whole, I thought they did a lot of things that were really cool. Like um I thought they played on like a lot of the tropes of like just documentaries and like bands in general.
Yeah.
Like the curse like the scenes where they go to like Elvis's grave and stuff like that, and it's or like the drummer's curse or like the Yoko Ono stuff, like things like that. I thought were really good. I thought one thing was funny when they're talking to the manager about why he has a cricket paddle, and he's like, "You never know, like when it'd be good to have like a big slab of wood with you," and it does that Family Guy cut scene thing to where it cuts to like a bunch of different scenes of like him using the paddle and stuff like that.
The
And I was
Family
like, oh,
Guy
that's
cut.
well, that's what I mean. Like that's how like that's like the one thing I would say glamorizes it the most. Like I think if you ask like any common dude, be like to talk about it, they'd be like, oh, you mean like how Family Guy does. But like watching this, I was like, huh, I wonder if they were the first people to do that. Maybe I don't know. I couldn't answer you.
Yeah, I mean, like that would like require like kind of like a investigation into like the history of comedy, like films and stuff like that. And I mean, that's a pretty big project in itself. But
Yeah,
yeah, well, I mean, like, have you
exactly.
seen like many rockumentaries? Like, have you seen Gimme Shelter yet, or Don't Look Back?
Nope.
No.
Neither of those.
Well, RJ, you will because they are both
Hmm.
future creeps.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll watch them then, and then maybe I'll have more of an appreciation for
Oh,
Spinal Tap.
I don't think that
Like
necessarily you
so.
need to have watched those though to get
Mhm.
anything out of more than this is Spinal Tap. I mean,
But
yeah.
so yeah, like the thing, like what you were saying with The Simpsons, like I think I hold that even more dear than like the movie where at the end of the concert they're like, "Good night, Springdon. There will be no encore."
Sure.
Like stuff like that, like has stuck with me longer than any of this, I guess, because I hadn't really seen it. But no, they were like individual things I thought were really good. I thought the credits were really funny. I thought that was like one of the best parts was the credits where it seemed like they were just like busting off lots of jokes.
Yeah.
Certain things I really thought, or so what I said I try to avoid, I'll just name like briefly, like things I thought were funny. I
Yeah.
liked the scene where they all had herpes.
Oh,
They all had like herpes in their mouths,
they're
and like
cold
they don't
sores.
address. Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
address it or anything. I thought that was
Well,
really funny.
I think the whole setup for that for me like that I thought was really good. Watching it this time was just like this whole idea of them like referring to like album covers being sexist, and then but they're like kind of thick, and they're like, well, what's wrong with being sexy?
Hmm.
And then it's like this like close up on this cold sore, and then then it pans over to the fact that they all have cold sores, and
Yeah,
it's just like, oh yeah, these guys are gross.
yeah. So
Gross band
exactly.
dudes.
Gross band dudes. I thought that was really funny. The pod scene, like you said, is really funny with like the clamshell that won't open. That whole bit is awesome. I like that they stick it. Uh, there was a funny line where they're talking about spontaneous combustion, and the one guy's like, "It happens all the time. It just doesn't
Yeah.
really get reported."
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Uh, I wrote down, I don't even remember what this is from, but I wrote down, "This is your crab face." I have no idea where that happened in the movie or why I thought it was funny, but I liked it enough to write it down. So that was really good. The summer camp for pale young boys, was that called Hogwood? Do you remember?
I don't.
They bring it up really briefly, but they're like Hogwood, the summer camp for pale young boys. That was funny. The scene where they get lost underground is really good.
Yeah.
There was another scene in the credits where like they're talking to people, and it's like I don't know if he was like a roadie or like a drummer at one point, but there's like this kind of like big gross guy with like curly hair, and they're like, what do you do in life?" And he's like, "Have a good time." all the time, and he says it really like aggressive, like really threatening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was cool, but so yeah, like on a whole, I really like this movie. I thought it was really funny, but I'm not like I don't hold it in super high regard or anything like that. Maybe in time, maybe in time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's like comedy is like one of the weirdest things. Like it's so unique to like time and place of when you watch something. I
Right.
mean, I could ask you like, what's your favorite comedy of all time? I mean, my answer is Dumb and Dumber. Like that is,
Sister Act 2.
yeah. What's your real favorite comedy though?
Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit.
All right then. Well, Dumb and Dumber. I don't know. There's no critical way for me to like think about that movie. Like I'll just
Yeah.
watch it and it just makes me laugh. I'm sure that a 18-year-old Jarrett watching that movie now, upon my
Hmm.
recommendation, would just be like, that movie sucks. Like I'm sure that that would happen, and it's a completely justified opinion, I suppose. But I mean, to me, that's like I think about that movie a lot. I think it's even basically referred to in our credit notes every single
Hmm.
episode. Um, and
Hmm.
it's like I think that's like the thing with something like this is Spinal Tap. Like it's just like it's on those like AFI best comedy of all time lists, and
Right.
yeah, it's just like I don't know. And a lot of those lists were made by people who probably watched This Is Spinal Tap the at like a very important point in their time, like growing up. And so
Right.
like when you see that in 1984, it's like yeah, that's like the best movie. It's a tape-tated movie. You start watching it on VHS, and then like I don't know, like there's been a lot of love put into this like movie in like its various like forms. Like when the
Hmm.
Criterion of this came out back in '98, it had like multiple commentary tracks and stuff like that, and like tons of like deleted scenes, like all like the everything you could possibly imagine. And then with the MGM DVD, which is what I actually watched, I mean, it's got a commentary track with the three characters, Christopher Guest and Michael McKean and Harry
Hmm.
Shearer all in character watching it and like complaining about like the this teardown job and how inaccurate it was and all the things he doesn't show and stuff like that.
Right.
So I mean, there's like a lot of like I mean, there's like a whole world kind of around this, and I mean, they play to that. Even on the DVD, there's like a bit with like it's an interview with Rob Reiner, but he's in character and it's like done after the fact, and it's kind of like hokey. Like it doesn't like
Yeah.
it's always one of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
It's like whenever like people think they can go back and do their like comedy stuff afterwards, it always comes off as like pretty inauthentic. Like there's just something
Hmm.
kind of like missing, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, like so I watched this the first time I guess back in around 2000 or so, 2001, just because like it's one of those like movies that like everyone talks about all the time, and I guess I for as far as comedies go, I was more drawn toward like these mockumentaries and stuff like that because I'd watched like Waiting for Guffman, I think before I'd
Hmm.
seen this, and so I was just like it was a kind of like a format that I really liked, and it seemed to promote good comedy, I guess, rather than like scripted stuff, which has a lot of like the same beats and stuff. Because I mean, this like
Hmm.
movie kind of like it has sort of like this weird happy ending that's kind of like, well, they're big in Japan, which is like the other like kind of trope to it. But there's like a certain like kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
weird like sadness and like good like character play that like all the actors are able to pull off. And I mean, considering it was just like improvised and like they had it all kind of mapped out, and they just kind of winged it. I mean, that's the one thing I've always like is just when you get like really smart comedians together and the stuff they start putting together.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess like what I did for my notes is I kind of like broke down like different aspects of like each of like the I guess principal characters or whatever or like parts of the production of it. So
Right.
first up is Rob Reiner. So he's the director of the movie. I guess like just as
Hmm.
a basic little rundown, he's the son of comedian director writer Carl Reiner, and Rob Reiner is probably most famously known as Meathead from All in the Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever seen All in the Family? Or
Uh,
was that out of
I
syndication when you were growing up?
no, I think I caught a couple of it, but nothing
Yeah.
to nothing worth mentioning. Like
Sure.
I don't have
Yeah.
the kind of bond I have to that to other shows that were in syndication. So
Okay.
I remember it, but just very vaguely.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like, I think I remember, like, I was in junior high, I think, when it actually hit syndication in Canada. So, and I kind of watched it, and it's like, I don't really remember anything about, like, Rob Reiner at all, but it's more like, it's like the Archie Bunker character. Like, it's Carol O'Connor. He's like sort of like I remember him. But I mean, like Rob Reiner, like he had like quite the amazing like streak of movies, starting with This Is Spinal Tap, because from that he went to there's like the John Cusack comedy The Sure Thing, which I just watched for the first time, and then like, and what a perfect time to mention, so he also directed Stand By Me, a Stephen King joint there, and Princess Bride, which I guess is like a fairly beloved movie. I haven't watched it for years, but I remember being pretty good last time I watched it.
Can I say something about Princess Bride?
If you want.
Controversial hot take.
Yeah.
I think that movie's just okay.
Okay.
I don't really like it. Or like, I think that's another one of those movies, like I was saying earlier, like a Fight Club, Scarface thing, where like the oversaturation and like popular culture and stuff like that has basically ruined that movie for me.
Fair enough.
Like I don't want to hear from other people how good that movie is anymore. Just stop it. I get it. I understand.
Do people still talk about that movie though? It seems like it's.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know if they do. I don't know. It seems like it's. I feel like it's died off. Yeah, but just to finish this run, so he went Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, which I also just watched, and Misery. And then I guess you could, then you could kind of mark off. I guess he did that A Few Good Men movie, which I have yet to watch. It's on my list of Booze Cruise movies to get to. And then he went right off the deep end when he made the movie North, which I think is like considered like one of the all-time worst films of the '90s. Won some Golden Raspberries and all that fun stuff. And like, yeah, he hasn't really done anything I'd ever watch after that like streak of like 6 or 7 movies. But I believe you watched a Rob Reiner movie recently. I believe it was Flipped.
I did. Yeah, and I think I talked about it on the show a little bit even.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, so like the thing with that movie, it's like I said, like it's perfectly serviceable movie. Like you can pop it on and maybe like it's what I like to call I'm doing air quotes here for people, a magazine movie, or I guess nowadays you would call it a cell phone movie.
Yeah.
So like one of those movies where you can throw it on, but you're actually doing something else, like cruising social media, checking out babes on the internet, reading a magazine about how to get buff abs, whatever. But you kind of just want something on in the background.
Yeah.
It's something like that. Like, I don't know. It was, I feel like he just wanted to go back to the era of Stand By Me, because that movie was like such like a universal hit for him. And like I think he just maybe has like an attachment to the 50s that he really wanted to just be back there or whatever. So I think that was the reason he did that. Otherwise, like there's no real reason that movie has to be set in the 50s. It could kind of be set at any time, like at any era. But I think he probably did that just because he wanted to go back to the 50s. So I don't know. Yeah. It's fine.
I mean, that's a pretty like common thing though amongst like these like 80s comedies, is it seems like all these directors really have a like that's nostalgia for the 50s, which is when they would have grown up. And so it's like really like in their music and stuff like that, like the national, like the Lampoon's movies and just all this stuff I was like looking at. It's like, oh yeah, that, yeah. And it's like always the same type of music and like, I don't know, Kenny Loggins and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like, oh, he sounds like he could be like a guy out of the 50s in some ways, like the updated version of that. But yeah, I mean, really, like, I mean, Rob Reiner's like, at this point, my mental conception of him is formed from the episode of South Park Butt Out, where he's like the anti-smoking advocate and buttering himself to get out of cars and through doors. And he's basically just this like activist fascist who wants to tell people how to live their lives. And it's sort of like, that's like really marked my mind. And I think like he was in like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's just kind of like this really smiley, nice guy who wants to get his way and stuff like that and just get money out of people for causes and stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of where Rob Reiner has wound up, I think, to this point.
Yep. I think that's fair.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, like, while I was like reading about that, I was kind of like, oh yeah, he's like the son of Carl Reiner. And I'm like, I really don't know too much about Carl Reiner other than he directed Stanley Kubrick's favorite movie, The Jerk.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hey, you know what else is interesting? You know what I heard the other day?
Yeah.
You know what is one of Stanley Kubrick's absolute favorite movies other than The Jerk?
Sister Act 2.
Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. Close. White Man Can't Jump. with Woody Harrelson and
remember.
Wesley Snipes.
Yes. Yeah, I wonder
So,
how many movies exist that are Stanley Kubrick's favorite movie.
just those two.
Well,
Those three.
and Eraserhead.
Oh yeah. Well, according to David Lynch,
Yeah.
that's like a who knows though if that's how he really felt.
Yeah.
That's like
maybe it was
Nicholas
all a
Winding.
dream.
Yeah, exactly. That's like how Nicholas Winding Refn has seen like those what's that guy Jodorowsky's. He's seen like those Jodorowsky things, and he's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it's like what you said that one time. It's like, well, it's okay for you to say that because you've seen it, and you know no one will ever see it. No one else will ever see it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened.
Fuck that guy.
What were we even talking about? I don't even remember.
Carl Reiner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I guess like I actually watched a Carl Reiner movie in my my 80s dipping because that was summer school.
Sure.
With good old Mark Harmon, yeah, and so yeah, I was just like kind of curious about old Carl Reiner, and just I read a little bit about him. So he's like probably most famous. Well, he is probably most famous for him and Mel Brooks's 2,000-year-old man gimmick that they used to do on the Steve Allen show. That they kind of like grew into a thing, which was also then referenced on The Simpsons.
I was gonna say the only reason I even know that was because of that Simpsons episode with Mel Brooks. Otherwise, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so Simpsons is sort of like has saved so many things, and Steve Allen. Who would know who Steve Allen is if it weren't for The Simpsons?
Or Steve Guttenberg, for that matter. Nobody.
Oh, no one would give a shit about Steve Guttenberg if it wasn't for The Simpsons in that one time.
The Stonecutters episode? Yeah. People out there know. Anyways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Carl Reiner, I mean, I'm sure someone who really knows a lot about him could talk more about him. But, like, yeah, he created a TV show called Head of the Family that he wanted for himself to play the main role, but it wound up with Dick Van Dyke. But I guess Reiner wound up sticking around and writing on that show. And I guess it was a popular show in the 60s. Maybe our friend Steven will inform us more about it and how I'm skimming over such important information about Carl Reiner.
I'm sure
But he directed like there's this one movie called Where's Papa, which has been on my radar to watch for years, and I think it just came out on Blu-ray. He directed the movie Oh God, which is the movie where George Burns plays God. And then yeah, he worked with Steve Martin a whole bunch. Like I said, The Jerk, excuse me, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, The Man with Two Brains, and All of Me. And shockingly enough, Carl Reiner, who was born in 1922, is still alive, and he's on Twitter.
Jeez. So wait, if he was born in 1922, what does that make him? 280?
Well, he's got to get to 2000, I guess. Yeah. Because Mel Brooks is still alive.
Yeah, exactly. Even Gene Wilder didn't make it as long as those guys.
He sure didn't.
So what's their excuse?
I don't know. He's got to be tough old Jew bastards, I guess.
Oh my God. Well, there goes our one fan.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess yeah, a couple other things. So Christopher Guest, like I mentioned, he went on to direct movies like Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, A Mighty Wind, For Your Consideration, and he's got a new movie coming out, Mascots, which just showed up at TIFF like a few weeks ago. Hey RJ, do you know who Christopher Guest is married to?
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say Carl Reiner.
You'd be incorrect. He is married to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Really?
Yeah. So old Nigel Tufnell is married to Jamie Lee Curtis. Laurie Strode herself.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Was that in Revised days? Were they married then?
What's that?
Were they married when True Lies came out?
Probably.
Good for him. Good for him.
Good for him.
That's all I gotta say.
Hey, RJ, did you know Christopher Guest is a fucking English baron by peerage? Yeah, like so I guess like it's kind of amazing like reading about Christopher Guest. Like I guess his like father was like some sort of diplomat. I mean he wound up with like one of those like with a baron like title, and then when he died it went to Christopher Guest. So Christopher Guest is like honorable Christopher Guest. But I don't think he really I think it fell out of favor because some vote came to pass that like that type of thing can't happen anymore. And he's like kind of for all abolishing like the lordship and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like, oh, that's so peculiar to me. Because it's just like, oh, this like comedy goofball and he's got like all this going on for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I mean, so yeah, your three leads in This Is Spinal Tap, they're all like Saturday Night Live alumni, which I guess shouldn't be really surprising. Because so Harry Shearer, who's Derek Smalls, Mr. Mutton Chops in the movie, so he was the co-creator and he's actually the co-writer with Rob Reiner on This Is Spinal Tap.
Right.
So like this is like kind of like really his like thing. But he is obviously most well known as the many voices on that television show The Simpsons. He's Mr. Burns and Waylon Smithers and like lots and lots of characters. I guess like he's really kept himself on the map just because like all the times he's like threatened to leave the show for more money, and then he was just like getting tired of how bad like The Simpsons has gotten. But I guess the money's remained good enough that he stayed on even though he's threatened to leave. Like I thought he was actually going to be gone for a while, but I don't think he ever did leave.
Well, I think what happened last year was he threatened to leave, and he actually was, and then they like got a guy to replace him,
right?
And then it was like a big cultural thing or not cultural, but it was like in the media for a big, like for like a week or two or something like that, and then eventually he's like, oh no, we got him back.
Yeah,
Hank Azaria could have just filled in all those spots.
Yeah, what does he need a throat for?
Nope, nothing.
Nope. Yeah.
What are we talking about? Addams Family?
Yeah, a while ago.
Oh, okay.
Well, so yeah, I mean, so like the band Spinal Tap, they've gone on to play several concerts, including Live Earth in London in 2007. They shot like a little like kind of final tour little documentary. I think Rob Reiner shot as like a short film called Spinal Tap. 2009, they released a Back from the Dead album to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the film. They re-recorded versions of the song for the soundtrack, 5 new songs. And yeah, I mean, like, I guess like in The Mighty Wind, like they have like also another like fictional band in that's the Folksmen. I guess like the one thing that's like pretty impressive is like they're actually fairly good musicians.
Yeah, that's so I. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no,
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
No, well, so anyways, like I was gonna say I was watching Spinal Tap with Andrea, my girlfriend, and she was like, "Who did the music for this movie?" I was like, "I think it looks like they did it."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, but for real, like Google it or something." And like I was trying to, and I was like, I think they just made the music.
Yeah.
So my point was, I guess I was surprised to find out that they, I guess, did all the music themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crazy.
Yeah,
they were really good at it.
Yeah, they're very good.
I would have never thought that guy. What's his name? Like Mike McKean, the lead singer. Yeah. The guy I've seen in like a million other things.
Yeah. My only note for him when I was like looking at this stuff was like he's like been in everything forever. Like he is just like he's like in like 12 movies a year kind of thing. And I totally forgot. And I was like, oh wait, yeah, he's in Better Call Saul because he's
he is.
Yeah,
he's his brother.
Yep.
Yeah, he's in fucking everything. Like, because I recognized him, like, after a minute, I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's in fucking every movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, like, just a gauntlet of TV shows as well, so.
Oh, yeah, no, his filmography is pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like your boy Bruno Kirby from City Slickers little moment?
Fucking right, you know I did. Love City Slickers.
Yeah. Bruno Kirby also showed up in When Harry Met Sally. And I'm like,
Is the orgasm?
No.
Are you sure though? Are you just saying that blindly?
Nothing's certain. Nothing is certain.
Nothing's certain. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I almost mentioned with When Harry Met Sally, I'd never seen that movie before, and I was really impressed with how well written that movie. I know, but did you like Billy? Well, speaking of Billy Crystal's cameo in This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, I thought it was so weird because I saw him. I was like, "Hey, man, Billy Crystal," and then he was gone, and then he was just gone. I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Whoops, sorry, Billy."
Yeah, good old mime is money. Mime is money. Yeah. Do you have any favorite Spinal Tap song?
Was it Sex Farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Sex Farm.
Okay, I have a preference, I guess, to Big Bottom.
Oh yeah, Big Bottom's pretty good.
Yeah.
Is that on a shark sandwich?
Well, I don't know. That brings me to that's probably my absolute favorite like moment of the entire movie because I forgot about it. But yeah, just like the whole setup, and like I watched the video again of it. It's just on YouTube by itself. It's like 6 seconds long, but it's just like Rob Reiner, like he's obviously just like feeding this line that they didn't see coming at all. It's in reference to the album Shark Sandwich, reference to a review that's only 2 words long. Shit sandwich. And like I fucking laughed like probably for a good like minute or so after that. And then like so I missed like the fact that like obviously Christopher Guest and Michael McKean, like they just like started like they had to cover their faces because they're just like, what, that's not real, that's, you couldn't print that as a review. Like they're trying to like throw it back at him, but like because they just did not see it coming whatsoever. But I mean, who could see shit sandwich coming? And like I don't know, it's so
Rob Reiner's got jokes, man.
Yeah, he nailed that one. But yeah, no, and like I kind of like always like remembered like the whole Stonehenge like sequence. Like I remember like him marking like the symbol for inches after the 18, and like the whole setup of it, and like with their manager in the room with like the woman who built it, and she's like, no, this is it. And then like I saw it all coming, and then like I'm like, oh yeah, then they lower it, but I'm like, but wait, isn't there like midgets? And then sure enough, the music starts playing, and they're just like dancing around, and like one of them accidentally kicks it and it just starts flittering around. Like, man, that
it's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, like as far as like my own feelings with the movie, it's probably been about 15 years since I watched it last. Like I remember like really being into mockumentary stuff like in the early 2000s. And like I watched it, and like I'd never really felt any impulse to rewatch it for a long time. And so watching it again, there's like some down moments. There's like times where it's just like set up, and it's just like, I mean, it's just how these sort of like improv things can go. Like not every single thing is like killer tight editing like we kind of come to expect with like Arrested Development, which is kind of doing the same thing, but it's so packeted and sharp that watching something with these kind of things where like they're trying to do a feel out and like make it feel like a naturalistic documentary, you have to allow for that. And so like I think like there's like enough in this that I think it's like still like really funny. I mean, it's not one of my all-time favorite comedies or anything like that. It's no Sister Act 2. It's no Dumb and Dumber. It's no Something About Mary.
Heavyweights.
Yeah.
You can throw Heavyweights in there.
Yeah, I know. I watched Heavyweights for the first time upon RJ's recommendation a couple months ago, and it's just kind of there. I don't really.
Well, you know what? You're a loser with a skinny wiener.
You know, it's a perfect demonstration though of like kind of like the problem with like coming to comedies like long after the fact. It's just like like we've been talking about Animal House or whatever, or Caddyshack. They're just kind of there. Like the most you can really hope for is like your comedy's like kind of inoffensive or kind of like well written that you can get something else out of it. Like I think like When Harry Met Sally is still like a pretty good movie, even though you never see these people living in New York go to their jobs at all in 12 years of their entire like relationship. Which is like, who needs a job when you live in New York City? From what I hear.
Hey, so your opinion on Heavyweights is known now, but did you even see that scene where Salami Sam has a salami taped to his back? Because that's just cinema gold, my friend.
I will say that Ben Stiller is really, really funny in that movie. Because he's completely serious, he takes it.
Yeah. What about all the fat kids?
Yeah, they're kids. They're kids in movies. I don't know.
Jerry Stiller's in there too.
That's
fat. Pretty cool.
They're fat. It's like
they're fat.
So
anyways,
so one of my questions, I guess, with this is Spinal Tap, is like with the actual band. It's like, are they hack musicians? Because there's sort of this narrative of how they kind of started off as like they're kind of like of the time of whatever they're doing, like whatever a more popular band is doing, they're going to adopt to that. And so like they start off as sort of like a Beatles-esque sort of band, or like the Byrds, and then they move like, or then they start doing like the hippie music when they start doing the Flower People song, which I think is like a really catchy song. I like that song quite a bit. But it's like kind of weird. So it's like then they got into metal, but they never left metal. And like there's like, I'm not sure, it's like have they reached an age where they don't know what the next trend would be? Because like that would be the thing, which like they would transition to like whatever the next like in style of music is. Like they would transition into like a Joy Division type of thing, or like Depeche Mode maybe, but I don't know. But it seems like they get stuck on this rut. So I thought like that was kind of like an odd thing. Like it was just stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're doing a send up of
Well,
heavy metal stuff, and it's just funny to do like sequences where you can recreate old stuff and make it like and shoot it like on the right type of video to make it look right, which is something like I love attention to detail like that. That stuff like is like just funny in itself. Like it's one of the reasons why like those like Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, when they do like the news broadcast stuff, it doesn't look like a news broadcast. Like it looks like a fake movie, and they're doing it, and it's like it's awful. And it's just like this movie has like nothing but resources at its fingertips, but they can't even do that properly. It bothers me, and I don't know why it bugs me so much, but it does.
Well, when we get Sam to guest on the show, you can ask him what the fuck he was doing.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be too busy, I don't know, working on Ash versus the Evil Dead or something.
Yeah, but how much is he even really involved in that show?
Oh, I don't know. I think he might be pretty involved. He seems to like...
Because he only directed the one episode, I think.
Yeah? Well, I think he's a producer on it. He seems to be like involved with all that remake stuff, and I don't know. Then there's that great Wonderful Oz thing.
Oh, that did really good.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of stopped caring about Sam Raimi after A Simple Plan, which is his best movie. Because after that, it's all just been like, I don't know. Drag Me to Hell, I think's terrible.
Shit sandwich.
Contrary to like people like that movie.
Sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, but people like that movie a lot apparently, and I don't get it. I think it's like super generic. I wouldn't go so far as saying it sucks, but I don't really like it, and I don't want to watch it again. But
I never liked that movie, and that was even before I was a ghoul. I was like, I don't get this at all. And then everyone's like, oh, it's a return to roots. It's classic horror. I was like,
yeah.
So that's my hot take.
Yeah. On the Wikipedia page for the movie, there's actually like this like whole section about like bands' reactions to the movie, and it's just like various people who've like watched it, it's like saying, whoa, that's just like us. And I'm like, yeah, that's why they're making fun of you, because musicians are kind of like the worst people. Like they're just like generally like pretty boring like macho dudes, like bands of just guys, like yeah, they're terrible, and it's like that's pretty easy to make fun of them. If people are like, yeah, it's totally it. I guess like the one that made me laugh was I guess like Aerosmith, so whatever, Steve Tyler. I guess he wasn't a fan of it because I guess like Aerosmith's like album that came out like right when this came out had Stonehenge on the cover, and I'm like, yup.
Well, he had it coming.
Yeah, and I guess like I think like Kurt Cobain or something like that was like talking about oh god, what was it? Like he thinks like there's never been a good like documentary made about music or anything like that. And then like Dave Grohl just jumped in. It's like, oh well, there was Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap's pretty awesome. And they went, yeah, that's pretty good. I guess Don't Look Back too. But yeah.
Hi.
I guess the other thing too that I'll mention is like kind of like a strange thing watching it this time was like the whole like the Jeanine character, kind of like the Yoko Ono like cliche thing I mentioned before. It's like, does that just strike you as like kind of like it's fine in the movie, or is it kind of just like lazy? Because like even at that time, like, the whole idea of like, oh, Yoko Ono is going to destroy your band, like that's the idea of like it's always like some guy's girlfriend destroying a band, even though it's like not really generally the case, or it's like there's like other problems.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it fit with what they were doing. It didn't pull me out of it or anything like that. So.
Yeah. I guess like it's just
I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I'm just like so aware, I guess, of that. I guess I've read like a lot about Yoko Ono's like day-to-day stuff that she's like been doing and stuff like that, and her like whole art practice, and she's this like super fascinating person that just like for like a lot of people they just like she's a punchline to like stupid jokes about the Beatles, and it's like, oh, that's crap. And so like this is sort of like the continuation of it, but I mean obviously it's like there's like nothing like obvious. It's not like she's into super like conceptual art or remotely interesting. She's just sort of like this like groupie who's into like new age stuff. And has terrible ideas. Though those drawings that she comes up with of Gemini and Leo and stuff like that, those are pretty great drawings and renditions of them as whatever they were.
I wouldn't know anything about that. Yeah. I thought what you were gonna say is when you like fell for her was the fact that you yourself have split up a lot of bands. Like, I believe
that's
Jarrett Fillmore Duncan is the reason Nickelback isn't making new music anymore.
Sorry,
and
guys.
The world wept.
Yeah.
Yep. And Creed. They're not doing anything anymore, probably because of you.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm doing good work, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm.
One other thing that I just actually found out about before doing this whole show with you was that I was reading about this another fake metal band called Bad News that I guess is a UK thing on a show called The Comic Strip Present on Channel 4 there. And it like this band, it's like a fake heavy metal band that like showed up in 1983, so a year before Spinal Tap. But
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it's like it just sounded like a total coincidence, which I guess like I mean just tells you that at that period of time, I mean, I guess this type of thing was ripe to be made fun of. Like
Hmm.
I mean there's like
So, are you saying that Rob Reiner stole the idea?
that's the exact opposite of what I'm saying.
Well, I'm going to call Rob Reiner's attorney and let him give him your information. So
Okay.
you'll be hearing from him.
He's on Twitter
Wow.
too. I guess him and his
Rob Reiner?
yeah, Rob Reiner's on Twitter, and him and Carl, they have some back and forths talking about Donald Trump and stuff.
Is it comical or is it sad?
Oh, it's not comical. Once you start
Oh.
once you start getting into that world, it's there's no more time for laughs, RJ.
Well, we can laugh because we don't live there, so
That's true.
nothing can hurt us.
No, yeah, we're untouchable by strange decisions that American electorate might be making. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So I was looking up who hates this movie.
Okay.
Half star from a username Pity Sex. This movie
Ew.
sucked dick just like the band members.
That's a little unfair to say. He doesn't know whether or not they did or
Yeah.
didn't.
Dev X gave this 1.5 star. This is Spinal Tap tried to be cool before we fully understood what cool was. There's no doubt that this paved the way for what become a certain brand of satire. Unfortunately, it feels very dated in retrospect. What may have once seemed provocative and smart now feels childish and almost in bad taste.
I don't know about that.
And then, like, the next 3 reviews I came across, they all make the exact same comment of "last were far and few between." So there's one guy here,
Okay.
yeah, last were far and few between. That's pretty much all. Another 1.5 star here. So this is Spinal Tap. The last were so far and few between. Yeah, and then like I think in the comments on that one, someone's like quoted the last were so far and few between and just said thank you.
Like, so I don't like. Did these guys all get organized and do this, or are they so like unoriginal that they were just using each other's, or was the joke just on them, Jarrett?
I think it's just
That's
like
what I have to ask.
I bet you if you look at like a lot of comedy reviews and stuff, you will probably find a lot of like that's like the common refrain of people who just don't like this movie. The last were so far and few between, and that's just what they have to say about stuff.
That's not a very it's not a very good review though.
No, it's not. I mean, the one guy does like kind of talk about how like now that we live in a world with like things like The Office and Arrested Development and stuff like that, and how yeah, like this maybe is like hasn't aged well into like a world where like the comedy keeps evolving and it's like tastes change and stuff like that, which is totally fair. I mean, it pretty well sounds like you had sort of a similar reaction, but at the same time you still like think it's like a well-made movie. Like it's not a bad movie. It's just like not like this thing that you're going to like I can't wait to watch this over and over and over again.
Yeah. No, I don't have any like any ill will against like the comedy of it, or like I didn't think that the issue was that there was few jokes or anything like that. Like I thought it was a legitimately funny movie. It didn't hit me inside, you know. That's all. But I can at least I got the balls, Jer, to acknowledge that I do think it is a well-made movie, and I understand why people would like it.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't in the right mood. Maybe I was. I had just spent like an hour making brownies, so I was pretty tired.
Yeah.
So and they were thick, juicy brownies. You could have tasted them, but
That sounds like a Spinal Tap song or album. Thick, juicy.
Thick, juicy.
You can taste them.
thick, juicy brown.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord. Well, maybe I'll make my own Spinal Tap, and it'll be called Butt Dump.
Yep.
I lost you. That's what did it. My fifth butt dump joke. That's what lost you.
That's the one. I'm just like, wow.
What did you agree to?
what have any, like, man, at this point, what have we all agreed to? I don't know. Well, before my throat gives out, I think that's a good place to jump off here.
Probably.
Yeah, and I guess we'll talk to you after the break. Hopefully I can still